Okay. Hey guys. All right, we are doing test review. And unfortunately, it's going to be a really fast one because the school closes down in 43 minutes. So this will be a fast test review. All right, preamble, source one. This goes with question one. Using source one, which statement best describes why the founding fathers started the preamble to the United States Constitution with "we the people"? A, the government will treat all the people equally and fairly. B, the government will guarantee peace for all the people of the country. C, the government and the Constitution were created by the people and for the people of the United States. Or D, the government will take care of the well-being of the people. We the people is the first few words of the preamble because it was meant to be created by the people for the people. It is letter C for number one. All right. Number two, dos, branches of government. It'd be great if I shared the document. Sorry. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Branches of government. Legislative branch creates the laws. Executive branch enforces the law. Judicial branch interprets the law. As part of the newly created Constitution of the United States, the founding fathers created three branches of government known as the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Using source two, what was the main reason for the founding fathers to create three separate branches of government? And of course, it's going to make me do this twice because, you know, it always does. ImageMate, come in. All right. Main reason for founding fathers to create three separate branches of government. It is B. The three branches made it impossible for one person or branch to have all the power. Remember, when the founding fathers created the Constitution, they were coming away from the time of King George and the tyranny that he had over our country. So they didn't want that. So they made three branches so that one person, one branch could not have all the power. It is B. Source three. Trace. Bill of Rights. Article 1. Think of it as Amendment 1, Amendment 2, Amendment 3, Amendment 4, Amendment 5, Amendment 6, Amendment 7, Amendment 8, Amendment 9, Amendment 10. Using source 3, which statement explains why a Bill of Rights was included in the Constitution of the United States? Well, it's in the name, Bill of Rights. It was to protect the rights of every citizen in the United States. Okay, that's why we have a Bill of Rights, to protect the rights of every citizen in the United States. Also using source 3, what are some rights that are protected by the Constitution? This is why I have the two pictures of Adrian in uniform on the board. Select two that apply. Freedom of religion, that is the First Amendment, and a person cannot be searched without a warrant. That is the Fourth Amendment, protects people from unreasonable search and seizure. The reason why this one's not correct, that's why the pictures of Adrian on the board. Soldier cannot stay in the home of a U.S. citizen. That's no quartering of soldiers. Okay. Remember I told you Adrian doesn't have to stay in anybody's home but mine, my husband's, and Tamia's. That's because he's our soldier. Okay. So it's B and C. All right, B and C. Source 4, 15th Amendment. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. 19th Amendment. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, meaning gender. Based on source 4, what is an amendment to the Constitution? It's an addition. Remember I told you amend means to add or change. So it's an addition to the Constitution that may change a current law or add new laws to the Constitution. It's A. Number 5 is A. Number 6, based on source 4, what was the main purpose of enacting the 19th Amendment into law? Ladies, don't get this wrong. If you also need another hint, is a poster above my computer and above my printer. 19th Amendment allows women the right to vote. Okay. I don't want pop-ups on my computer. 19th Amendment allows women the right to vote. Okay. right, source one, sit-in at Woolworths 1960. That happens to be one in New Orleans. Canal Street was the city's main shopping area in the 1960s. However, Jim Crow law allowed lunch counters to refuse service to African Americans, which made it 40% of the New Orleans population. On September 9th, 1960, white and black members of the New Orleans chapter of the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, defied those segregation laws at Woolworth's lunch counter. The students were arrested for holding the sit-in at the Canal Street location. Based on source one, how did African Americans try to solve the community issue of segregation in New Orleans? It was C, by protesting. A sit-in is a form of a protest. They protested. Okay, source two. This is this map. Cool map. Terrible time in U.S. history. Terrible subject. Okay. Look at the region of the U.S. that has the area is black in color. Okay. Segregation in this region was required under those Jim Crow laws. Okay. So if you have segregation in this region, when segregation ends, there's going to be a lot of changes, right? So what region is that? Is this the north? This is east? Is this the west? Or is this the south? So based on source two, which region in the United States would be most impacted by the end of segregation in schools? North, west, east, south. That's the south. So the south would be most impacted because the south is where all that segregation was going on. Okay. So once the segregation ended, that's where there would be the most change. Okay. Using source two, how can a good citizen contribute to the democracy of the United States? Okay. Remember, I've given you guys information about what my son and daughter-in-law have gone through. So being informed about the issue of segregation. So first, just being knowledgeable about what's going on. And if we're talking about the map, that map's dealing with segregation. Okay, and it says source two. The map's dealing with segregation. That's what source two is talking about. So being informed about the issue of segregation. And the other thing that a person can do is advocate for everyone's rights. Advocate for everybody's rights. So it's D. A, be informed, and D, advocate for everyone's rights. Got it? All right. Source three, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, segregation on the grounds of race, religion, or national origin was banned at all places of public accommodation. So that would be places where people would stay, including courthouses, parks, restaurants, theaters, sports arenas, and hotels. No longer could African Americans and other minorities be denied service simply based on the color of their skin. Based on source three, what impact did the Civil Rights Act of 1964 have on the United States? Let's B. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned segregation of citizens based on race, religion, or origin of birth. Okay, it banned segregation. All right. And the next one asks about source four. This picture was taken just before the other picture that we've looked at with Martin Luther King with the March on Washington. Okay. These people are holding all different signs that they carried on their march. And it says Martin Luther King Center with other civil rights supporters at the March on Washington, D.C. in August 1963. On August 28th, 1963, an interracial assembly, interracial just means involving different races, just like Adrian and Tamia have an interracial marriage. An interracial assembly of more than 200,000 people gathered peaceably in the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial to demand equal justice for all citizens under the law. The crowd was uplifted by the emotional strength and prophetic quality of the address given by Martin Luther King Jr. that came to be known as the I Have a Dream speech, in which he emphasized his faith that all men someday would be brothers. Based on source 4, what was the purpose of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom? And I'm going to pull this back up here again and point this out. All those people gathered peaceably to demand equal justice. Do you see my pencil underneath those words? They were demanding equal justice for all. Okay. See that answer? To protest for equal justice under the law. It's B. 11 is B. That's a matter of just reading closely the text. Okay. Number 12. Based on source 4, what impact did the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom have on the Civil Rights era? I wish we could say B, but unfortunately, it's not. It is C. It led to the famous I Have a Dream speech. Okay, now we're back to government. Source 1, establishing a government. The delegates debated long and hard over the contents of the Constitution. Some of them wanted a document that gave much power to the federal government. Others wanted to protect the rights of the states and called for a weak central government. Delegates from large states claimed their states should have greater representation in Congress than the small states, but small state delegates demanded equal representation in Congress. The delegates finally reached agreement on a new constitution on September 17, 1787. The Constitution provided for a two-house legislature, a House of Representatives and a Senate. Representation in the House was based on population in order to satisfy the large states. All states received equal representation in the Senate, which pleased the small states. Which statement best describes why the Founding Fathers created a legislature with the House of Representatives and a Senate as part of a new government as seen in Source 1? It is A. Each state had equal and fair representation in the federal government. Okay. I know we're going fast, but I have no choice. The school's about to shut down in 30 minutes. Source 2, colonies and the empire. Before the Revolution, Americans benefited from being part of the British Empire. England's command of the seas gave American merchants access to markets in Europe, the Mediterranean, and the Caribbean. Chief American exports, salted fish, rice, wheat and grain, and tobacco, were carried throughout the world by American ships. England's growing industries made manufactured goods available to American consumers. While the American Revolution freed American merchants from British restrictions, it also denied Americans British protection and made it difficult for American traders to trade with Europe. Before the Revolution, 75% of American exports went to England, Ireland, and the West Indies. After the Revolution, Britain and her colonies would buy only 10% of America's exports. Based on source 2, declaring independence from Britain had what effect on the colonies? C. It became very difficult to trade goods with Europe. Remember, it said only 10% of their exports went to Britain and her colonies, whereas before 75% went there. So they had to find somewhere else to sell their items. That's a big loss. Okay, so let's go to source 3. Okay, here's a picture of Loyalists. Here's a gentleman, and I'm assuming his wife and their baby. Looks like a Native American maybe packing up a horse. and other people traveling. Some kind of big body of water. Loyalists leaving the American colonies. The atmosphere after the revolution was unruly. Many people, whether they were actively loyalists or not, were persecuted by the patriots. Individuals were harassed, physically assaulted, homes were looted, and property was destroyed or stolen. This treatment was given not only to those who were actively loyalists, but to others who did not seem patriot enough. Many of these people fled America and went to Canada. Hi, Miss Margaret.
How are you today?
Doing pretty well. Based on source 3, why were loyalists leaving the colonies? A, they were being persecuted by other citizens who had different beliefs. That's your answer. Would you like another Dr. Pepper?
Would I be begging?
Here we go.
Thank you. What the world did I do?
That's JC's pencils. Okay, on to source 4.
Making videos.
Yes, this one's their study guide, video study guide. All right, this one's a picture of Adam Smith, whoever this gentleman is. Smith argued for free trade with no restrictions in the form of tariffs. So a tariff is a tax on a traded good. He saw in the American colonies merchants who had sought out markets and wealth, not because of government policy, but because they were self-interested traders. If governments would lift trade barriers, Smith predicted, merchants would seek out the best markets. In addition, Smith insisted, gold was only a measure of wealth, not the source of wealth. I don't mind taking some gold. Real wealth, came from agriculture and trade in agricultural goods, he said. So number 16 asks us, using source 4, which of the following best describes why Adam Smith believed that all trade should be free of barriers? So according to him, the British should place taxes or tariffs on the colony, which had a negative effect on its economy. Okay. That's why he thought all trade should be free of barriers. 17, based on all the sources and your knowledge of social studies, describe 2 effects that the American Revolution had on the United States of America. So this is what I came up with, make my own notes. The U.S. established its own government. The U.S. became independent from Britain. Many loyalists left the U.S. The U.S. economy changed, with it becoming harder to sell items to Europe. Another thing was the U.S. merchants, a merchant being a person who sells items, merchants had to find new buyers of their goods since Europeans no longer were buying from them. Okay, I'm gonna leave this here for just a moment because I have to let my husband in. So I gotta throw my badge down. Thank you. Okay, guys. So those are things that I came up with. You need 2 changes that the US had after the revolution. Okay. So I came up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just need 2. Okay. Just like with the quiz, you can either write complete sentences or you can do bulleted responses. I'm fine with either. Okay. All right. We're over halfway there, guys. All right. Number 18. Which of the following occurred as a result of the 14th Amendment? 14th. That's the Citizenship Amendment. So that's D. Freed African American slaves were given citizenship. Okay, so it's D. 18 is D. 19. Stamp Act, Boston Massacre, Boston Tea Party, and Intolerable Acts. All events listed above led to the American Revolution. Made the American colonists really, really aggravated. Okay, so it led to the American Revolution. D. All right, Seneca Falls. This is the state of New York. Okay, Seneca Falls, New York. That's where the women's conference went on, and they talked about suffrage. Women have been suffering for so long. They discussed voting rights for women. The meeting discussing voting rights for women occurred there. So B. 20 is B. Meeting discussing voting rights for women occurred there. Okay. 21. Congress passes a bill. The president vetoes the bill. Congress overrides a presidential veto. Which principle of the U.S. is illustrated in the sequence shown above? It's B. Checks and balances. Okay. Be glad your teacher looks over this because the makers of this curriculum said it's federalism. No, it's checks and balances. Because Congress does something, the president can say, nope, don't want that. And then Congress can override that. So it's kind of like this side does this. The president says no to that one. And then this one can go back and say no to the president. So that's a check and balance. Okay. Sugar Act, Stamp Act, Townshend Act was the primary reason for the British to pass these acts. These were all things the British were doing to raise money to pay for the French and Indian War. B. Craig, if you look at the pencils on the students' desks, you know what they need, right? I'm sorry. But they have to stay on the right student's desk because remember, I have to treat the students. So British were trying to raise money to recover the cost from the French and Indian War. Sorry, guys. 22 is B. All right, almost done, guys. 23. How did the above impact African Americans? Poll taxes and literacy tests we've talked about before. We've not even discussed grandfather clauses, so don't even worry about this one. Okay. Poll taxes, literacy tests made it difficult for African Americans to vote. Okay, so it's A. Made it difficult for African Americans to vote. 24, which the following was a grievance to King George III that was written in the Declaration of Independence. Think about the pictures of my son on the board dressed in uniform. Okay, grievance to King George III that was written in the Declaration of Independence. It's right here. Colonists were forced to quarter troops in their homes. Okay, colonists were aggravated. They did not want to quarter troops in their homes. Remember I told you guys, the only people that have to quarter Adrian, that's Craig and I and Tamia. He's our soldier. Nobody else has to quarter that soldier. Okay. Okay, that was a grievance in the Declaration of Independence. All right. 2 more to go, my friends. 2 more. 25. Come on, Elmo. Come on in. Legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. Who is the leader of the executive branch? That's the president. He's the CEO of our country, so to speak. Leader of the executive branch is the president. Last but not least, colonists don't have a voice in Parliament, so England shouldn't tax colonies. In simpler terms, no taxation without representation. Which group of people during the American Revolution? There's the answer sheet. God blast it. Okay. Which group of people during the American Revolution would have agreed with the above quote? No taxation without representation? That's the Patriots. The Patriots would be the one saying no taxation without representation. Okay, so it's B, Patriots. All right, that is it, my friends. We just went through that test mighty fast. Bye.